Welcome back to my comic book collection video. In this video, I will be showing you my DC Comics collection. Now, of course, you saw my Marvel comic book collection video. I'll leave a link to that in the description box below. You can check it out. Now, this video is going to be a little shorter because I don't have that many DC comics as much as I have Marvel comics, and you'll see. I'm more so of a fan of Marvel, and the only thing DC I like is Batman. So basically, it's everything Batman with a little different aspect to it. But it's, you'll see what I mean. This first one is a graphic novel. It's Batman Battle for the Cowl. You know the story, you know the aspect of it, you know what's going to happen, and it's just fun. More so, graphic novels for me are fun. They're much more different than a comic book, even though they are a comic book. I love the color of this. I love how everything plays out. Nightwing, you have everything in there, and everyone's fighting to become the next Batman. This is a very, very long comic book, and at the end of it, you find out who actually becomes Batman. Of course, it has Jason Todd, that whole story of it, and this is really, really fun. It's one of those few graphic novels where I absolutely loved and enjoyed a lot, and I definitely want to get more graphic novels just to add to my collection. Next up, I have Batman Detective Comics. It is autographed by Chuck Dixon, as you can see, and out of the 1700 issues, I have number 430. Now, I do want to open this, and I do say that I do usually open my sleeves, but I figured show you because this is not the cover of what it has in it. The cover is very, very different than what you think it actually is. And the reason I say that is because, and I always have a hard time opening this, is because not only is this in its own little thing, but you open it like that. And this opens into, it's a simple comic book cover picture of Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, Ra's al Ghul. I love this one because it's, you don't know what you're going to get into, and it has Batman, Nightwing, and Robin in it. It's fun, and it has Talia. It's the whole aspect of everything. And of course, it's Detective Comics 700 issue, August of 1996. I feel like this is what they used for the inspiration for Batman Begins in a way, but it's very different. The whole thing about the surprise ending is really what gets you in this comic book, because you don't know what to expect in the aspect of what's going on. This is part 1, Legacy, and of course there's more parts to this, but it's fun, it's different, and it's always good. And of course, as I was looking at the cover of this, you saw the back advertisement, which is for the Phantom movie that came out in the summer of 1996. But this cover right here is perfect. I mean, it's Ra's al Ghul, it's great, the whole story of it. It was great that they used him in the Dark Knight trilogy, and it's fun. Now, the aspect of this is that always putting it back in its own sleeve, I'm always careful doing that, because I don't want to rip anything, I don't want to mess anything up. You just do that, put that over, kind of open the little lip it has, fold it in like a letter, and then bang, done. So that is a Batman Detective Comics number 700, featuring on the cover Ra's al Ghul. Next up is I love this because I love the movie. I have a Batman Returns comic book, which is the entire movie in comic book form. Yes, you heard that correctly. It's the entire comic book from the movie. It's great. I love it. It's a special issue from the 1992 movie. Like I said, it's official comic book adaptation of the movie. Is it the true sequel comic book wise? Who knows, whatever. But if you're not a fan of movies, which I don't know why you aren't, then you'll not enjoy this, because when you watch the movie and you read this, it's somewhat different, but the aspect is there of what it is. And watch the movie and read this at the same time. It's so much fun. I did that one time and I had a blast doing it, and it was amazing. Now, next up, I have, and I don't know why I have these. I don't know why I have these. And I could say it's kind of both the same in a way, but I have the Batman and Robin comic book. Yes, from the actual movie. Because as you can see, it was an advertisement for Batman and Robin in June of 1997. Uh, Different, fun, interesting, great. Is it the actual movie in your face? Yes, yes, it is. It's everything that you want, and if you see the movie, you know what this is. Not only that, but I have a kind of another issue of it too. I have two Batman and Robin comic book movies. Listen, people don't give love to this movie because they say it's horrible. George Clooney doesn't like it because it kind of, he said it ruined his career. Well, there are people like me who are fans of this movie who absolutely love it. And it's just cheesy, fun, in your face. It's a bad, good movie, if you know what I mean. So I have two copies of Batman and Robin. One is in a version of comic book form, and I figured one is like a graphic novel, more so a live action way. Next up, these are just different aspects of what the comic books are, because I'm a big fan of the, like I said, Batman and Robin movies. And this is more so, I have Bane. Just simple, it's Bane, and that's it. It's the Bane comic book, his origin, his story. And it's always interesting because it's signed by Chuck Dixon as well. I'm going to open this one because, you know, I give this one a lot. And I'm just going to, you know, take this out of its sleeve for now. Here we go, and there we are. It's more so of like a fun little graph, you know. It's great. Listen, I'm blown away by it because the animation, not the animation, but the artistry is different. It has Nightwing in it. It's great. It's not the true Bane origin story, but it has that Batman animated series feel to it, which is always really, really fun. And this came with the collection of the Batman and Robin comic books that I found. So that's Batman and Robin. Next up, I have Poison Ivy. Yes, Poison Ivy. Another different take on the aspect of Poison Ivy and how she came to be, what she is, and everything. And this was good. This was fun. It was very different because Poison Ivy doesn't have her comic books that much. She's always with Harlequin a lot, or Catwoman. And, you know, it's just the aspect of her getting her own comic book is really, really good. Next up, I have Mr. Freeze. Yes. Mr. Freeze is one of those underrated Batman villains that should be in a live-action Batman movie other than Batman and Robin. And, you know, that should be redone in a new world, a new setting. And I feel like the Batman 2 with Robert Pattinson could have that aspect where we see Mr. Freeze in it. Of course, as you saw at the end of the Batman, everything was flooded. So then how can you bring in Mr. Freeze? Well, freeze over Gotham City and use Mr. Freeze in a new iteration, a new adaptation of this character, of what it is. Because, I mean, although Arnold Schwarzenegger gave an over-the-top performance, he's not the Mr. Freeze. This is Mr. Freeze. And I feel like they know what they're going to do when they cast this role. Good origin story, great, I loved it, and it's really, really fun. And I have Batgirl. I love Batgirl. I love the dynamic in it. I love how everything is done. She's just a very sexy character in a way for me, you know? And it's just different than Barbara Gordon being, you know, Batgirl. You know, of course it changed for Batman and Robin, which was very different, which didn't really fit the mold, but when they started more and more of certain ways of introducing the character in other aspects of pop culture, it really, really worked, and it was really, really fun. Batman Batgirl is a great, great read. Like I said, this, Batman Mr. Freeze, Batman Poison Ivy, and Batman Bane were all came together with the Batman and Robin comic books that I have. So, I mean, I can't beat a collection like that. I'm going to take it any way I can. So, that's really, really fun. Now, let me get this out of the way before I continue on with my Batman. I do have a Superman comic book. Yes, I actually have a Superman comic book. It's The Fall of Metropolis. It is autographed by one of the designers or the artists of Rodier. And out of the 10,000 issues that were printed, I have 7,589. This was great. This was fun. This was in your face. I love the aspect of the fall of Metropolis and Superman in Action Comics. This comic book is very bright. It's very in your face. It's very fun. You don't expect anything to happen until you start reading it. But then when you do start reading it, you can't put it down. And that's what this is supposed to be. It's great. And when you see the fall of Metropolis, be prepared because it happens. Now, continuing on with my Batman comic books, I have part 1 of 3. Yes, I know. This is signed by Chuck Dixon and Flint Henry. And out of the 750 issues that were printed, I have number 245. And this is Man-Bat. Man-Bat is very underrated. He was supposed to appear in Batman Forever, which was directed by Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer and starring Chris O'Donnell, Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones, Nicole Kidman. You know the whole aspect, deleted scene, and that was supposed to be Man-Bat. And I feel like it didn't fit the mold that Warner Brothers wanted, because they wanted it out, because they wanted more of a flamboyant, picturesque, colorful Batman, because Batman Returns was so dark. But this is really, really good, and it gives you the aspect of the history of Man-Bat, how he became Man-Bat. This is part 1 of 3. I don't have 2 of 3 or 3 of 3, and I definitely am going to search for it, because I definitely need to see what happens in the rest of that comic book. And here you have the anniversary edition celebrating Batman's 600th appearance in Detective Comics. Yeah, it's in its sleeve casing. I love it. It's great. It's only 80 pages. Really, really short, really in your face, really not as flamboyant as you would think it would be, but it's really done really, really well. And the aspect of how everything goes is so, so good. I love this comic book. I mean, it's his 600th appearance in Detective Comics, where he got his start. 600 appearances over a slew of many, many decades and years is great, and this is one of those years and decades. Definitely check this out. I mean, you could say that the cover art is great. It's an homage to one of the original cover arts that featured Batman. This is really, really fun. Now, up next is a full collection of my Batman comics. Now, as you can see, I have all 3 of these. It's Batman Dark City Part 1, Batman Dark City Part 2, and Batman Dark City Part 3. Part 1 of 3 is great. If you read it, it's really, really fun. Listen, this is my full collection I have of a 3-part series of Batman. I mean, the sleeve is not giving much of a detail on the aspect of what I want it to be, but it's so, so good and so, so well done. Part 2 is even better. It gets the story going, and look, can you see that? Zombies happening. It's so fun, it's so great, and it's very different than what you would expect it to happen. But then here's the kicker. In part 3 of 3, the Riddler appears. And this is a collection where you can't put it down. You have to read it when you get it, and it's just so much fun. And this actually has to be one of my favorite comic book 3-part series ever, because it's really underrated and nobody really knows about it. Because with part 1, you get that slow burn, you know, and then part 2 comes along, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? And then part 3 comes, it's like, whoa, it sets up the Riddler perfectly. It's so great, it's so fun, and I absolutely love this 3-part collection. Now, this is a spring #1 reprinting reissue DC Comics Millennial Edition, the debut issue of Batman. It's Batman. Yes, it's not the original, so just hold your horses and don't get crazy, because if I had the original, I don't know what I would do. But I heard there was a lot of fanfare out there for this comic book. But this is a reprint and reissue of the first, where Batman appears with Robin. It's a great, great read if you've never read it. It's so much fun. I'm not sure if they do still sell these at comic book stores, or if it's a different find. I actually found this at a comic book collection, and I couldn't pass up the chance to get it. Even though it's a reprint issue, I'm not going to pass on it. Anything that's a reprint from the original debut of any character. Of course, you saw in my Marvel comic book video, I had the reprinted issue of the first X-Men from 1963, and now I have the Batman issue of his first debut. So there you have it, my DC comic book collection. Like I said, short video, more shorter than my Marvel comic book collection. And I do want to say, I think if I did my calculations correctly, when I did look over my collection, I have a total of 55 comic books. Yeah, you're thinking a comic book collector only has 55 comic books. Well, I'm working on gaining more. I have 16 DC comic books, 4 miscellaneous comic books, 2 Darkman, 1 Spawn, 1 Crow, and 35 Marvel comic books. So if my calculations are correct, that is 55 comic books in total for my comic book collection. I love comic books, I love pop culture, and as you can see, of course, I'm more of a fan of Marvel, as I said, than I am DC, but I'm trying to work on my DC collection and just to get that up and going, and it's going to be fun. So let me know in the comment section below what your favorite DC comic book was that I showed you. Do you know any of them? Have you read any of them? If you haven't read any of them, will you be reading it now that I showed you my collection? And let me know what you thought about my comic book collection in the comment section below, in the Marvel video or in this DC comic book collection video. I figured show you my collection, do something different for this channel, and show you that pop culture mind that I have with Marvel, DC, and anything that goes with everything that I love and enjoy. I'm a nerd geek myself. Listen, when you grow up in the 90s and the 2000s, you can't help but grow up on pop culture like this. Everything is movie quotable. Everything is quotable from comic books. You love it. You do what you love, and that's what I do. I do what I love, and it's absolutely fun. And I think I'll be doing more of these videos when I show you more of the comic book collection, just to show you what I added to the collection and what I did get and what I did receive. So let me know in the comment section below what you thought about my 2-part series of my comic book collection of Marvel and DC comics. Let me know in the comment section below about the question I just asked. And thank you so much for tuning in.